Today's talk is called Choose Your Family with Joy and Love. There's a lot of levels to that. A lot of different levels to choose your family. A lot of us don't have relationships with our blood family for various reasons. Either they're no longer on this planet, or they're no longer agreeable to be in the presence of. And so many of us have had to choose a family that's not part of our blood lineage. But also, we can choose our blood family, and we can choose the relationship we will have with our blood family. We can choose all of it. We can choose it all with blood and joy, love and joy. We can choose every bit of every relationship with love and joy. And not everybody always knows that. Some people think, well, I can't because they're so disagreeable. And I guarantee you, if you become more agreeable, not codependent, but more agreeable, you will have a splendid relationship, either in the same room or across town or across the country. There is I can't believe I'm to tell this, but David likes to tell this one about the man who married a woman from England, and he says my mother and I get along great because there's just this one thing between us, the Atlantic Ocean. So, I looked up a couple of things. One was I looked up choose. Choose. You'd think that would be obvious, wouldn't you? But no. And so I pick out or select someone or something as being the best or most appropriate of two or more alternatives. To choose. It could be people or it could be attitudes within the people. To decide on a course of action, typically after rejecting alternatives. To have a preference for. To have a preference for. Many of us have a preference for who we want to spend each day with. And we feel burdened when we have to spend it with someone we don't care so much for. And I say, release the burden and decide, do I want to spend my day today with this person, or do I want to spend it with somebody else? And sometimes, but I have to spend it with this person. And do you? Why do you have to? I think we often forget that if I myself have God in my corner, everybody has God in their corner, whether they choose to act on that or not. And so to realize, there's nobody lacking God or truth or wisdom or love. There are just people who aren't choosing to be aware of it. They're still trying to have their misery and eat it too. And so to pay attention to that. It's fun to take an alternative used after cannot and usually followed by but. And they quote J.A. Froude here, who says, "When earth is so kind, men cannot choose but be happy." Imagine thinking of earth as so kind. Thinking of life as so kind. Imagine beginning to think of it that way all the time. So family, I looked up family here. A group of people united by certain convictions or a common affiliation. A group of things related by common characteristics. A closely related series of elements or chemical compounds. And so to begin to realize why we gravitate to the ones we gravitate to, it's because we have a common bond. There is a theory that before coming into this body, that we actually choose our parents by agreement. And at one point I thought, well, if that is true, I sure found a couple of people I could identify with. And then one day I didn't want to identify with them as that anymore. And so I shifted. And then they went ahead and shifted with me. It was so nice. I just opened a door of, I'll hug you, and things changed. Things changed because I decided I want to love my family. I want to. And if they don't want to be loved by me, then I can walk away and still love them. I just don't have to love them in person anymore. But instead they said, oh, I like this, I want this too. But it was better than me being over here thinking, I want to love my family and I'm afraid to. What if they reject me? Well, what if they do? Then you'll know where you stand, won't you? And you can go on about your business. When my mother made her transition, it's when I finally learned my mother, for me as an adult, in God was my sister. At a certain point, we are all brothers and sisters. And I thought, oh, I wish I had realized that earlier. I could have left her off the hook, or let her off the hook for a lot of things I was still holding her accountable for. And if I had taken the time and the study to realize, oh, we are brother and sister at this point, and we are free to let each other be. And then there's all this room for love because I'm not trying to change her, I'm not trying to make her different. And so I was glad I could realize that, because then I can look at all of you and realize, oh, we're brother and sister. We're brother and sister. We're brother and sister. Then we're all playing both roles, in case you don't know. To realize, oh, I can let them free to be however behaved they are today, and not need them to be different in order for me to be safe. It takes a strong spiritual practice, as far as I know, to do this, but it's worth it. It really is worth it. It eliminates so much misery. It eliminates so much chaos. And here's my thought. I think we're worth it. I think we're all worth amazing relationships. I think we're all worthy of amazing relationships. I was talking to someone yesterday, and they were telling me how someone, quote-unquote authority, was speaking to them. And I said, you're old enough now to tell this person, could you phrase that in a different way and in a different tone of voice? Oh yeah, I do it all the time. And she said, I keep forgetting to do that. I have no problems. I learned several years ago, I'm just way too old to be spoken to in a certain tone of voice and in certain patronizing ways. I remember years ago, in my early healing, I went to the doctor for the first time in like 10 years. I thought, well, I'm getting well. Let's go have a physical. And I showed up at that doctor's office, who I didn't know. He was the doctor of a friend of mine. And I didn't have insurance. Strike one on his list of approval. I smoked heavily. Strike two. And he started to let me have it for these things. And I thought, well, enough's enough. And I said to him, look, I'm here today as an act of self-love. If you don't want me here, there's lots of other doctors in New York City. If this is a problem, you tell me and I'll get up and leave now. Otherwise, speak to me differently and quit yelling at me. You don't know me. And he apologized. And he said, I'm sorry, you're right. And then I got all my results, all the blood tests, everything back. And he said, you were in surprisingly good condition for someone who has hurt yourself so much. I said, but you still have to quit smoking. And then we laughed. Because, of course, he was right about that. But there's no reason why anyone in a position of quote-unquote power should get to yell at us. But we can't yell back at them and think we're going to get better results. But we can say, could you say that in a different tone of voice, please? Because I'm having a hard time hearing you. Could you speak to me differently? Because I like to use this one now. I'm very old, and and you know it's just complicated when you speak that way. And I want to hear what you have to say. So could you say it differently, please? People will always pull it in. I haven't found anyone yet. I don't get yelled at much anymore, I'll be honest. But when it happens, because you see, I'm worth it, and I'm worthy of the whole good kingdom. And so to choose my family with joy and love, that means I've got to choose the entire human family in joy and in love. I wish the whole family could hear this, but we'd need a bigger room. And but spread the word. And first of all, spread it to yourself if you're not already aware of this. You are so worth it. You are so worth choosing in joy and love rather than defense. And let the other one off the hook if they don't respond the way you were hoping they would. Sometimes they're setting you free to go. They're saying, I don't want to be part of your family. It's not going to work between us because I don't want what you're offering. And isn't it painful when you're offering love to someone and they say, but I don't want your love. And they may not say it in those words, but they say it in those actions. Sometimes they say it in those words. And so they're giving you such a gift because then you can move on. And then you begin to develop your very strong bonds on this planet in order to lift up energetically, to lift up in light. You know, hopefully your common bonds aren't the people you have to gossip with, to complain with. You know, if you might want to shift that a little bit, and it could be uncomfortable for a little while when you're not rolling the dice in a good gossip session to take your turn. Because some people have said to me, well, Shawn, what am I supposed to do when they're saying all this? Well, a friend of mine just smiled and looked at me. It's like, oh, and I could realize, oh, she's not playing the game today. But I've told you the story before, but she loved me so much she didn't criticize me for playing the game. But so I could look at her face, just looking back at me in love, not patronizing, not any of that, just looking at me in love. And okay, I'm so embarrassed, but only for a second, because she loved me. And we went on with more spiritual conversation at lunch that day. It was such a gift to choose your family in love and joy. To choose your family in love and joy. I'm going to read something here. It's from this book called the Bible. You may have heard of it. Truly, truly, I say to you, he who does not enter the sheepfold by the door, but climbs in by another way, that man is a thief and a robber. But he who enters by the door is the shepherd of the sheep. To him the gatekeeper opens. The sheep hear his voice, and he calls his own sheep by name and leads them out. When he has brought out all his own, he goes before them, and the sheep follow him, for they know his voice. A stranger they will not follow, but they will flee from him, for they do not know the voice of strangers. This figure Jesus used with them, but they did not understand what he was saying to them. So Jesus again said to them, Truly, truly, I say to you, I am the door of the sheep. All who come before me are thieves and robbers, but the sheep did not heed them. I am the door. If anyone enters by me, he will be saved, and will go in and out and find pasture. The thief comes only to steal and kill and destroy. I came that they may have life and have it abundantly. So, this is a confusing passage to many in the Christian faith because they think it's about Jesus rather than the Christ consciousness. The I am there is about the Christ consciousness. It is about come through this way. The thief and the robber who try to get in through another door, who try to get into heaven, into the kingdom, into right consciousness through another door, can't ever use it. Now, our metaphysicians teach it through our unity. Metaphysicians teach us the thief and the robber, and I want to be very careful how I phrase this, or I'd ask you to be very careful how you hear this. Is they're talking about using medication, using stuff in the world to have a full healing. You can't. You can only deal with symptoms with that stuff. You can only deal with symptoms with drugs, with alcohol, where, you know, symptoms of your thinking. The only way to heal the body is through a right relationship with your source. It is the only true way to have the full healing is through a right relationship with source. When we use the other stuff, even recreationally, you know, drugs and alcohol, cigarettes, food, what have you, excessive food, we're not talking about don't eat, but when we try to use that, we're trying to get into peace, we're trying to get into some sort of comfort, some sort of assurance, and we're trying to go around. And that is the thief and the robber, because it's telling us, you will have peace if you do this. You will get out of your angst or your chaos if you do this, if you take this, if you eat this, if you say this. And it never works. It never, ever works. There's not one person who has entered the kingdom of assurance and confidence through the side door. Not a one of us has ever done it, and we keep proving it over and over and over again. When we try to do our lives through self-reliance, we always come up short. And I will speak for everybody here. I will speak for everybody everywhere when I say this. However, when we connect to that presence, to that power, we call it our Christ mind, we can call it our superconscious mind. It is that within us that knows the absolute truth of our being. When we come in through that door, and that's what Jesus is talking about in this passage, when we come in through that door, we can be assured of our good and our goodness. We can experience astonishing health. We can experience astonishing wealth, and not for the sake of having it, but for experiencing it. We can experience astonishing harmony, where we don't have to worry about trusting each other, where we will know that we ourselves are trustworthy. And that's where we get confused. I think I need to trust you, but no, I need to be trustworthy. Now, as a minister, quite frankly, as a Shawn, it's really what it comes down to. I'm a minister because I'm a Shawn, not the other way around. I wasn't trying to be a good minister years ago. I was trying to be the best Shawn I could be. And that's when I realized, because I had spent most of my life not trusting people, with good reason. And then I realized, it's not about them. I have to become trustworthy. I have to work at that. And then it doesn't matter what everybody else is doing, because I'm not threatened any longer. It's me who must choose this behavior for myself. I can't keep trying to choose it for you. And so to begin to look in that, I am the way and the truth and the life. But it's actually the last part. I have come that they may have life and have it more abundantly. Now what that tells me is our friend Jesus, again, we don't worship him, but look into his choices. He was a great power of example, an amazing power of example. And what he kept choosing was source rather than the world. Source. He called, as far as we know, he called it God, he called it Father. Actually, he would have called it Abba, which is the word for God, or Father back then. And he chose a very personal relationship, and yet a very metaphysical relationship with what he understood to be his source. And this is the way into the kingdom, not for when we die, but for right now. For right now, to choose with love and joy, to keep choosing. Oh, wait a minute, there's a promise there. Life and life more abundantly. That's why this person opened up their consciousness, that they may have life more and have it more abundantly. And the only way to do that, quite frankly, is to invite everybody in. Everybody in. Everybody in, regardless of their behaviors, regardless of all that stuff. Their behaviors don't mean anything in truth. It's let's get them over to truth, and then the behaviors won't happen anymore. It's not about stopping the behavior so that we can then get into truth. No, get into truth, and there will be no more of those behaviors. There will be no more dishonesty. There will be no more illusion that my choosing the thief and the robber will somehow be to my advantage. It'll be the other way around. Then I don't have to hate the thief and the robber. Then I don't have to hate the illusion, and I don't have to hate my past where I forgot or never thought I knew. Now I could, if I'm on the board right here, right now, in love, I don't have to hate anything about the past. We clear on this? Would anybody like to be free of hating their past? Yes. Free of regret? Yes. Would anybody here like to be free of that? Well, the only way to be free of that is to live in an abundance of love, to live in an abundance of wisdom, to live in an abundance of intelligence, spiritual intelligence. Last thing I'm going to read. Now, it's the same chapter from John chapter 10, except in the Holy Spirit's interpretation of the New Testament. And it says, I am the way, and the thoughts that came before were not. You spent many years listening to the thoughts that came before me, and they have given you nothing. I am the way because I am the light, and the light is the way to life. Open to me. Listen to me. Tune out all other voices by letting go of all other thoughts. The time has come to listen only unto the light. Now, I know everybody in this room has light. I know everybody in this room has had moments of clarity, perhaps long stretches of it. I know everybody here has. And so, we're moving into the holiday season. We're moving into a great opportunity, a traditional time of awakening to the Christ mind within us. Next week we start Advent. And so to begin to look at ourselves differently and say, wait a minute, what is it I want? What is it I want to choose now? Do I really want to be right about this? Is this going to satisfy me to be right about being wrong? Is this going to satisfy? Is this guilt going to satisfy me? Guilt is a liar and a robber. It tries to get us around the door so that we think somehow we can still have poor behaviors because we'll be redeemed by guilt. Where did that come from in some of these teachings? That I will experience redemption through guilt, and so therefore I can continue to behave poorly and think in terms of lack and think in terms of foolishness and, oh, well, at least I'm sick, so I can go ahead and gossip and criticize and all that. At least it must be God's will. Really? Really? Well, get a new God, as I've told you before. If your God needs you to be sick, unhappy, poor, living with fights and misery, no, get a new God. Just go ahead and create a new God. You need a God that's not in your image. You need to be in God's image in your mind. And so, this week, today, now, this second, choose your family of thoughts. Choose your family of people. Choose your family of play and activity. Choose your family with love and joy. Go for it.
Yeah.